Hello and welcome. I'm Tricia Morris from Club Scrap. This is the Magnolia Card Kit Workshop. We're going to have a lot of fun today learning some new techniques and creating a dozen cards together. I've got my printed copy of the instructions here and my Magnolia card kit. For now, let's set aside all those envelopes and the beautiful goodies here and ribbon. And let's get down to basics here by sorting the paper included in your kit. And I also have handy my guillotine trimmer by Fiskars, as well as my accordion pocket file. And for my newcomers here, if you don't have an accordion pocket file, don't let that keep you from proceeding ahead with class. Just designate 4 piles, A, B, C, and D, to help us organize the pieces we're about to trim. If you're using this, you'll organize them into the vertical pockets here after you place the lip of the file under the base of your trimmer. Super handy trick there. And my friends here at Club Scrap can help you procure everything you need to make your own accordion pocket file as well, if you like how that system works. Now let's take that entire stack of paper that came in your kit and sort it in the order we'll trim it. We'll begin with one of the sheets of this green. Now you'll notice right away that the green is extremely heavyweight, and so make sure you just take one sheet, and it will indeed be one. Next, we'll trim this wine color. It's a really deep saturated color with a linen texture. Next, find the white linen. This is a linen texture too. And another green. One more wine. And then find one of the pink. It's a nice soft pink. Continue with the next white linen. Your last green. Your last wine, the last pink, and then grab the 2 prints that you have. We'll trim those last. Those are most difficult to replace, and by then you'll be all warmed up. And then find the Cutapart that has all the little squares on it on one of the edges. You have 4 flowers in the upper corner there. And then the final Cutapart, just flip that over to the plain side as well. So all those plains at the end all went plain side up. Then flip the entire stack over, so we're back where we started with that green at the top of the pile. We'll proceed with step 1. We'll trim the green and the wine at the same time. If you don't feel comfortable with that, don't worry, just rewind or go back in the video and repeat the instructions. But we're just going to save time by trimming both at the same time. That's the efficiency of this method. Before we start, I noticed that on my instructions there was an arrow on this diagram. That means that the paper needs to have the grain dipping in that direction. So if I hold the paper by this edge and wiggle it, it seems like it wiggles pretty easily. But if I rotate here, it's stiff as a board. So we want the paper to bend easily from the left to the right, just like this. And we'll double check the same to be true for this wine colored paper. Now it looks pretty droopy, pretty stiff. Dipping left to right. Now we'll stack them neatly together and make our first cut. If you are new, once again, we need to place the papers simultaneously into the trimmer at 8.5 inches. Some people accidentally look at centimeters. Go inches. Since it's 8.5, I like to find the whole number 8, then go to the left to grow the number. It's going to be 2 of those vertical columns. So that's 8.25. Here we have 8.5. Once you find it, again, double check to make sure your paper is level at the top. Push down firmly, again, because there are 2 sheets in there. We want to make sure you have a good grip on this, and slice. That's all there is to it. Now rotate this entire large piece while leaving this lay where it lands. Do not move or relocate anything that lands until I direct you to do so. Find the whole number 11 inches. Stabilize again on the clear bar. And then slide down to 5.5. Again, make sure that when you find 5.5, you don't go to the right, you go to the left to make the number larger. A lot of students for the first time accidentally maybe go to 4.5. So just be really careful. 5.5. Stack up the sets that you made that are the same, and we're going to set these aside for now. We're not going to file them yet. We need to score them. So I'm going to keep a separate pile for all of the scorables, and then I'm going to take these little skinny pieces and pop them in pocket D or pile D. And those are pieces I didn't use, but I could use. So I save them until the very end, and then I can dispose of any scraps. Now this final strip, we'll pick that up and cut it at 9.5. And 4 3/4. So again, just to double check, you find 4 and you go 1, 2, 3 vertical columns. That puts me at 4 3/4. And now I've got a set of 4 panels, and all of them are used in card set A. So put that on my first pocket, and maybe if you're using just piles, try using a Post-it note or something to label them. And you've got some little scraps here. I'll put those in pocket D as well. Moving on to the next diagram, we still have to double check our grain direction. So take the white linen, compare, oh, that's definitely grain, and I want it once again dipping left to right. And I'll take this green, very stiff. I can bend it, so that's the direction I want it going, left to right. This is a different set of trimming instructions. Our first cut is at 10 1/4. And then 7. And you can see I'm remembering to press on the clear bar before I slice. Now that I've trimmed at 7, I'll rotate and cut at 10 3/4 and 8.5. Now these two pieces are going to be the slimline card bases that need to be scored. So I'll set them aside. I'm going to make a series of squares with this strip. So I'll neaten it up and place it horizontally or the long way into the trimmer. We'll cut at 6 3/4, 4.5, 2 1/4. Just made a whole bunch of squares. So we'll take the squares and place them in pocket B. And there are 2 little pieces. We're going to trim those I'm not going to trim them. No, these are scraps. You can get rid of those. And then we have these other little strips. I'll put those in pocket D in case I decide to use them. And now I'm moving on to this 3 1/4 by 12 inch piece to the right of our trimmer blade. It should be on the top of the stack, provided you haven't, relocated it somewhere else. And let's trim at 8 1/4. This large panel, pocket B, and then the other rectangular panel, C. And we have this final strip. Let's cut this one at 7.5 and 4 1/4. This one, the one that was just in your trimmer base, pocket C. Then this shorter one, pocket A. And finally, you have an end that is a scrap that I'm going to place in D. We get to repeat all of that again with wine. So let's just check our grain direction. It's dipping left to right and pink. This is the first time we cut pink. Dipping left to right, we'll trim 2 at the same time. So repeating now, our first cut is at 10 1/4. Again, remember to stabilize. And then all the way down to 7. Stabilize. Now rotate. We'll trim at 10 3/4 and 8.5. 8.5. We just made 2 more slimline card bases, which I'll set aside in my scoring pile. And how about we make some more squares with this rectangle? All right, here we go. 6 3/4, 4.5, 2 1/4. Now the joy of this is that all the math has been done, so you can just zip through these cuts and get on to creating. So let's take the squares that we made. All of them go in pocket B with their friends. There's some other squares in there. And then we have 2 more little scraps I won't make you cut. This longer strip, pocket D for, designs later. And now we do need to trim this strip at 8 1/4. Pocket B again with its friends. And the other panels in C. It should have some friends in there too. We'll trim this strip at 7.5 and 4 1/4. This piece that was in the base of your trimmer, pocket C. And this one, shorter one, an A. And then this remainder, D. We are moving on to page 2. Once again, I can see that we have an arrow left to right, and we're going to do 4 sheets, so 2 at a time. You get to do all this twice. So the white linen, dipping easily left to right, and then same for the green, dipping left to right. We are going to trim at a large number to create a tiny piece. So that's 11 3/4, all the way down, really close to 12. Stabilize. And then at 7, stabilize. So important with these heavier papers. Now rotate, and let's cut at 10 and 5. Now let's take just these two, the white linen and the green, and set it aside to be scored. There's another pair, the same size. Those don't get scored. They're placed in pocket C. Let's take this strip and make some squares. All right, we're going to trim this time at nice, whole, even numbers. Let's start with 6, 4, 2. Gather up all the squares, pocket B, and we have 2 little scraps here to deal with. Now this next strip, we're going to do a lot of cuts, and the entire pile, including the little pieces we're about to make, will go in pocket C. So all of these are used. Let's begin at 11 3/4, 11 1/2, 10, 8 1/2, 6 1/4, and 4. That's a pretty impressive pile of paper right there. But again, to remind you of the efficiency of this is going to be beautiful when it comes to assembling the card. Can you imagine how many scraps you would have if you just made these one panel at a time without any advanced prep? So all of that goes in pocket C. And there are these strips that you can set aside in D if you decide to use them later. And we're going to repeat that again with the wine. So checking grain, dipping left to right. We should be used to that by now. And the pink, dipping left, right. It isn't always left to right, just, in this circumstance. All right, once again, 11 3/4 is our first cut. Then all the way down to 7. A reminder to stabilize each time. Rotate and trim at 10 and 5. Okay, here we go. These 2 pieces will be scored, so I'm setting those aside. And then the other 2 that are the same, pocket C. Let's make some squares out of this strip by trimming on the even numbers. 6, 4, and 2. Gather up the squares, pocket B with its buddies. And we do have some scraps. Again, we can pitch if you'd like. And then we have this magical strip here for card set C. All right, here we go. Lots of cuts. 11 3/4. So remember, you're way over here. 11 1/2. 10. 8 1/2. 6 1/4. And 4. Gather it all up. Every last little piece from that section. Pocket C again. And we do have the long strip that can go in pocket D. We can trim this print anyway because there is no orientation, and the paper doesn't have to be folded, so we don't have to worry about grain direction. Our first cut is at 11 3/4. And then 7 1/4. Take the 7 1/4, rotate. We'll trim at 10, 7 1/2, 5, 2.5. Gather the 4 that are the same. Those will go in pocket B. And there is one 2-inch piece that's just a little narrower than the others. That's for pocket D. And then let's take the strip that's 4.5 by 12 right now. We'll trim at 10, 8, 6, and 4. Believe it or not, this piece is a scrap. And these 4 rectangles that are the same, pocket C. So let's begin by trimming at 8. And we don't have to fold this paper later on, so the grain direction isn't an issue. Again, that's 8 and 4. Now, here's a tip for you. We're going to trim both of these pieces the same. So I'm going to put them back to back and have you cut at 10.5 and 5.25. The reason I put them back to back was so that the paper doesn't slide at all. Sometimes the printed side can be a little bit slippery. We don't want that. And then all 4 of these panels, pocket A. And the last 2 pieces are scraps for D. And then I will cut this final 4 by 12 at 11, 8.25, 5.5, 2 3/4. You made a series of 4 rectangles the same for pocket A and a scrap for D. And this last piece can be placed in pocket D if you decide to use it. Here we are at the Cutaparts. I want to point out that there is a little plus sign in every single corner on both of these sheets. All the paper from that line and out needs to be removed as stated in the instructions here. And so to do that, I'm going to make my first cut a little bit generous to that plus sign so that I can rotate now and see better where my blade of my trimmer is, both at the top and bottom edge of the print. So I'm going to line up that gray line with my blade, and sometimes it might mean leveling the paper as well. Then another rotation. I should be nice and level, and I can see from top and bottom. And another rotation. Now I can look over here at my 12-inch mark because I'm turning this into a 12 by 12, and I'm just going to neaten up this last edge here by taking off a literal hair of paper with my trimmer, and we can dispose of these little scraps. Now let's begin by separating all these elements. You'll want to insert this into your trimmer with the flowers in the upper right corner. And our first cut here is going to be at 10.5. Again, just make sure you're not slicing through an image, but between the images. Then 9, 7.5, and 3 3/4. Let's rotate. Make sure the skinny one is on the right, the get well. Let's cut at 10 and 5. Both of these larger panels go in pocket A and the get well soon in B. Same thing for the next strip. Make sure you're looking gorgeous today is on your right. We'll trim at 10 and 5. Now you might be working with an add-on cut-apart option that turns all these cards into Mother's Day cards. So then just substitute 1 for 1. The measurements will be the same. The placement of pockets will be the same. So these larger panels, pocket A, and then this other one in B. Now let's pick up this next strip and slice at 9, 6, and 3. All of these go in pocket A. Here we'll take this strip. I've got this, the flowers are on the left, so just be aware of that. And we'll trim at 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6, 4.5, and 3. Place these in pocket B. all the squares go in B as well. And then we'll do it again. So we'll start at 10.5, 9, 7.5, 6, 4.5, 3. If you want, you can just cut this at 1.5 as well. Now place these two flowers in C and all the rest of the squares in B. Here we're at our last cut apart. So once again, let's remove that perimeter following the same process of just trimming the scrap from each edge. Before we begin trimming this officially, now I want you to make sure the narrow strip is on your right, and we'll cut that at 11.5, 8, and 4. Now you can just go ahead and take both of these pieces and stack them neatly together since they are trimmed the same. I didn't choose to do it on those little squares because they're so small, and if there's any imperfection, I just wanted to make sure we only did one sheet incorrectly. So let's just go ahead and make sure Enjoy Your Day or this larger panel is on the left. We'll trim at 9.5, 8, 6.5, and 3.25. So these 4 larger panels, and then the next skinnier panels, there should be 4 of those. They all go in pocket C. So many pieces now. And then these last 2, just like medium-sized ones, they go in B. And we're going to end with some nice easy cuts here. 9, 6, and 3. Gather all 4, pocket C. This last piece you can place in D. And before you put your trimmer away, I want you to take the crinkled paper that came in your kit. Now the official measurement, and it is a handmade item, the official measurement on the width should be 5.5. So let's make sure that it is indeed 5.5. So I'm just going to put this in my trimmer at 5.5, stabilize, and slice. And we did get a little bit of a scrap off the end. So that just is to foolproof the situation here. Then let's rotate it so it's horizontal. We'll make a trim at 5.5. And then 2 3/4. Now, let's do these one at a time here. So this piece that is narrower, that's kind of a scrap, so I'll set that aside. Or you can put it in pocket D in case we decide to use it. Let's take one of these 2 3/4 by 5.5 inch rectangles and trim it at 2 3/4 again. Same for the other one, 2 3/4. What did we just do? We made 4 squares that measure 2 3/4. Pretty accurately here. Very happy with that. They're all going to go in pocket A. Now let's swap our trimmer for a score pal. Remember that we had that whole pile of stuff we were setting aside to be scored? Well, now it's time to deal with it. So I'm going to take this 5x7 here. Happens to be pink. We're going to work backwards from the pile, so I didn't put anything in a new order. And let's place this horizontally into your score pal. And if you don't have one of these and you're going to be serious about your card making, definitely pick up something like this. I'm also using a metal ball tip stylus to score rather than the plastic bone folder that comes in the tool. And we have some interesting scoring to do here, so just bear with me. Let's start at 1/2 inch. That's kind of an awkward position to start in, but I'm just going to hold my score on my tool like a pencil and just bring that away from me once I engage in the 1/2 inch channel. And then go all the way down to 6.5. So we got 2 score lines, 1 on each end. Then I'm going to take this piece and flip it from the bottom to the top and score at 2 1/4. So again, that's 2 1/4 and 4 3/4. So now I've added 2 more lines closer to the center to create 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different scored areas. Set it aside. Now, if you feel that there is a wrong side to this paper, I'll put the wrong side facing up. This is the wine 5x7, and I'll score again at 1/2. and 6.5. Then I'm going to flip the paper from the bottom to the top and score at 2 1/4 and 4 3/4. So when we flip, what we did was we created 2 raised bumps on the outside edge and 2 indentations in the middle. That's intentional. Let's repeat again here. So we got a 1/2 and 6.5. Flip bottom to top, 2 1/4. This is a heavy paper, so you'll need to press more firmly. 4 3/4. If you didn't press very firmly, there's no harm in going back and scoring again. Make 2 passes and adjust your pressure as needed. The pressure you use should reflect the weight of the paper. So I had pushed pretty firmly when I was scoring this one. Here we are at the white linen. Let's start with the smooth side up. Score at a 1/2. This too is a quite heavy paper, and 6.5. Flip the paper from the bottom to the top. Score at 2 1/4 and 4 3/4. All 4 of these pieces can be placed into pocket C. So just grab this, and when I'm not using this with my trimmer, I just make sure I lay it on its back. It's not designed to stay up without the help of the trimmer. Next, we have a set of 4 pretty large pieces. So when we place this into the score pal, you can see at the same time what both measurements are. This should read 7, and this should read 8.5. So in other words, it's going to be vertical. It's really important you don't score horizontally, okay? So vertically at 3.5. And again, since it's a pretty heavy paper, we can have it pretty firm. I'm doing 3.5 on all of these that are the same here. Really firm on that green. When you score the white linen, the linen texture is facing up. 3.5 there. So all 4 of these pieces will land in pocket B. And now we have our last 4 pieces. They're just 8.5 by 5.5, your standard card base. So we'll score at 4.5. In fact, it's so standard that asterisk is right there on our scoring target at 4 1/4. So if you're using the score pal, they try to make it pretty easy for us to do that standard card, 4 1/4. And now I can place all of these in my organizer or on your pile A. And we're ready to start making our cards. All that prep work will save us a lot of paper and time at the end. Next, you can take everything back out. We just started adding things to it. We can take it back out of pocket A. So this is the first set. Now each card style has 4 cards, but we'll make 1 together and have everything else prepped for the remaining 3. You can see right away you've got your card bases. Now when we fold our card bases, make sure that the bump or the raised area of the score line is on the inside of the fold. And never trust your score lines, my friends. Line up the paper visually from end to end. I usually do it in the air like this so I can really see all sides. Lay it down, and I'm just going to use my fingertip to make a quick crease. So here's the bump. Visually level everything out. Make a crease. Repeat for the next sheet of wine. And finally, again, always checking for the bump, making sure the bump of the score or the raised part is on the inside of the fold. With all of those finger creases, these are not very well burnished. So what I like to do here is come in with my actual bone folder, stack the cards neatly, and then score the folded edge. And that always does a nice job, and I get a lot more done with a lot fewer burnishes. It's all about efficiency for me. I like to use my crafting time wisely. I don't have unlimited amounts. The first 2 cards will be wine, and then the second 2 will be green. What we're going to do now is deal out all the pieces required to complete these cards. And then again, we'll make 1 together. Next, each card will receive one of these printed panels. So just deal it out. Notice I'm dealing the pieces from my hand and not from the table. It's a little bit more efficient. Then we have some plain panels here. We've got a green and a green. Now notice I'm staggering the color. The base is wine, the panel is green. Here the panel is, or the base is green, and the panel will be wine. So you're just kind of swapping things out. That's the beauty of this whole process. Now there should be some smaller prints. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, each card will receive a piece of the crinkled paper. Then we have some smaller panels that are not printed in the pile here. How about pink? Now I'm adding a color that's not yet visible on this one, then wine, white here, the white linen, and the green. Now we have our choose what makes your heart bloom, choose what makes your heart bloom, and the happy birthday on each of these. We'll go celebrating you today. We have some graduation season coming up, so maybe that would be appropriate. So to celebrating you today could be anything. And then the other two, may your day be filled with good thoughts, kind people, and happy moments for the last two cards. Now, I have my envelopes handy here. These are the A2 size envelopes designed to fit these cards. So I'm going to take everything needed for card 4 and just pop it into the envelope. And that way, all of these will be ready to assemble once we're done doing one card sample. First thing we're going to do is make a miniature envelope from this square sheet of paper. Being mindful that you can literally make a mini envelope from any square, okay? The first thing we're gonna do is with the paper on the plain side up, I'm just gonna fold it from corner to corner to opposite corner that is, and make a crease in the middle. Open, rotate, and then do the other corner to the opposite corner and crease again. All I'm doing is finding the center of my paper. That's it. I can see the little X marks the spot. And maybe I'll even mark it. You could probably do this with a ruler too, but it's just, you know, a quick way to do it without a ruler handy, right? Now, I'm going to take this pointed end and bring it up to that center mark that I made. And then crease. Now rotate it and do the opposite corner also up to the center mark. Now we'll rotate it like this, and I want you to bring up this bottom tip so that it comes level with that line. So basically where that crease is happening, I'm going to bring this up so that this corner, and this tip are generally level. And make your crease. It looks really close like an envelope at this point, doesn't it? I'm going to varnish that a little bit so I have a nice folds. The final steps are I'm going to fold back on this tip now so that right around where these angles meet. So do you see how that's the angle? And I'm going to fold there. Maybe just bring it up a hair. It doesn't have to be exact. So I'm folding down on this. Maybe I'll make a little burnish again. Okay, that's what I have now. Then I will reverse that fold and bring it back up. And now I have my envelope. It's not true origami because we will be using adhesive. And for the final steps, I will use my bookbinding glue dispense from my applicator to just seal that little top point. And then I'll add a little adhesive here and here and here and bring that up. And now I have this cute mini envelope. You could even do this out of old dictionary paper. You know, you could do all kinds of cute things. I keep a sand-filled tape dispenser on my desk at all times, and it's super handy as a paperweight. I'm just gonna set that under there. Remind me that's where that piece is for later when I go looking for it, right? Let's do a little other prep. I'm using a corner chomper. So this is a very durable heavyweight corner punch. You can also use just a regular corner punch. And I'm gonna take the 1/4 inch setting, open the wings, and feed this into that guide and do a little snip on the upper corners only of that element. And the same for the nesting mat for that element. Next, I'll take a cut of my silk ribbon here. I'm going to do an angle cut, and then I'm going to make a trapezoid shape. I think that's what it is. About a 2-inch length. Fold it in half so that now my tails kind of match sweetly. I'll place that above my little hummingbird here and grab a stapler. Any kind of stapler will work. I have a mini. And next, let's nest this onto our little mat that we have here. That way the back of the staple is hidden. We should be good now on this, and we are, and lo and behold, it fits perfectly into the envelope, and if someone really liked it and they wanted to use it as a bookmark, they could. Now we do have some like pale pink waxed cord, so I'm gonna just, I have 2 yards of it. So I'm gonna do a double wrap around the base of this little handmade envelope. And you have options here. If you don't like tying bows, simply tie a knot. Otherwise, you can definitely make a tiny bow. And you might think, I have such big hands, I can't make tiny bows. Well, I do too, but the way to make a tiny bow is just make a big bow first, right? Just kind of a regular bow. And then you just keep pulling the ends and tightening the knot. And before you know it, you have a tiny bow that's super sweet. Trim the tails. And it's good to go. That's adorable. You could probably even go 3 times around. There's plenty of this waxed cord, and I love that it's waxed because it helps prevent it from coming apart. Like when you're making a knot, it's so easy to work with. All that's left really is a bunch of nesting. So what I ended up doing on my batches, because I made like all 4 at the same time, is I can safely adhere all of these panels. I can even place adhesive on the inner sentiment too. That's the joy of the efficiency as well when you're working with stuff like this. So here we have just an 1/8 of an inch reveal for nesting that piece. For the next one, on my samples, I actually ran this through an embossing machine. That's totally optional. I added a little embossed texture. I'm not going to do that with you right now. That's a totally optional thing, but a suggestion. The reveal on this is 1/4 of an inch from the printed panel. And on my grid ruler here, 1/4 of an inch is 2 cubes. So if I take my grid ruler and I bring it 2 cubes from the edge, that line there, 2 cubes from this edge, and then 2 cubes from the top and bottom of the panel, and rest my panel onto it, it's perfectly centered. We have another, this one's going to be 3 cubes. So 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then this is going to be centered as well. I didn't even find the 0 center. I just found cubes, 2 cubes, 3 cubes, and now everything's perfectly centered. Nothing's tilted or crooked. And I won't be disappointed when I walk away and come back later and look at it. I won't go, oh, what was I thinking? I just put adhesive on the back of the envelope and I'll nest it onto the front of the card. Done. Open her up. And we've allocated a nice large inner panel here. It's a 2 cube reveal if you want to get picky, but with plenty of room to write a little message and sign your name in the lighter colored area. This can go into our final envelope. It's ready to send, ready to use as an inspiring sample to complete the other cards. And remember, you can add texture if you want. Let's take a look at my samples. Here's card 1. This is the one we made, and you can just see I used an embossing folder that had a little foliage on it, and it was very sweet. Second card is the same, except it has a wine backing. Third card, very similar, just different colors again. And the fourth card. So I had plenty of that wax cord, so feel free to make a third pass around the envelope if you like. It's time for set B. These are the slimline cards. Let's take everything out of the pocket. And what you're going to want to do is just organize yourself a little bit with all these squares. Maybe just make a series of piles of like-sized items so that it's easier to distribute everything as we go along. Once you have your piles made, you can start out by folding on the score line again, just to review. Don't trust your score lines. Find the bump, the raised bump, and bury it on the inside of the card. A nice little finger crease will get you started. And it's especially important that we trim these slimline card bases in cooperation with the grain direction of the paper, because these long folds would look pretty nasty if we were folding these long lines against the grain. So I'll take 2 at a time here and give those creases a nice burnish. And then I'll take these other 2. That green is a little stubborn because it's just such heavy paper. We're going to make 2 vertical and 2 horizontal cards. So let's set ourselves up here with the wine. That's going to be vertical. The green will be vertical. Make sure your folded edges are kind of facing the right way. And then a horizontal pink and a horizontal white. Let's figure out the best way to arrange these so they're all on camera here. Okay, that'll work. Now let's distribute the next largest panels. We'll add a green panel to the wine card, white linen to the green, the wine linen, and the pink. Each card gets a print. And now the fun part. We have, if you've realized it, 2 sets of squares. One is larger, the others are smaller. So make sure you're grabbing from the larger stack. Let's find 3 white squares to place onto our first vertical card. 3 pink squares. You'll notice that they're all sifted because we trimmed 2 colors at a time. Then 3 green, 1, 2, 3, and 3 wine. Well, the fun part here is just kind of distributing the missing color, right? What is missing from this first one? I think pink. So I'll add a pink square, 3 pink squares here. And the fun of all that trimming pays off, right? Wine is missing from this guy. Then white here. And our last card gets the remaining 3 greens. Now we have little images and words and sentiments and things. So mine really fell out of order, but we'll do our best. Friends, fill your life with joy, your soul with sunshine, and your heart with love. I'll repeat that. Friends, fill your life with joy, your soul with sunshine, and your heart with love. Now here we just have some floral images, so I'll take this one. Doesn't matter. 2 different kinds of flowers. And then how about a wishing you a speedy recovery? And here we have 2 more magnolias and a hello. For the inner sentiment on this first card, we'll use thankful for you and then thinking of you. Then with speedy recovery, obviously get well soon, and then you're looking gorgeous today. I fussy cut these flowers with scissors and use them on the horizontal cards. Of course, that's optional. At this point, it would be a great time to find your slimline envelopes. Let's pop in these 2 horizontal cards and then 1 of the vertical cards into the envelopes too, so that we'll be ready to go for easy location of all parts and pieces, right? I think this is a great way to do it to stay organized. Let's take this green panel and some of this gorgeous satin ribbon here, silk ribbon, and I'm going to cut a piece that's long enough to wrap itself around 2 of the corners. Then I have my handy tape dispenser here. I'll just grab 2 little pieces and I will bring that up to the corner, make sure it's kind of level, wrap those ends around to the back and secure. Nice. I'm going to do the opposite corner with this piece. Make sure you're wrapping with the grain direction of the ribbon. Ribbon does have grain just like paper, and you'll tell right away which way it wants to go and just cooperate with it. Excellent. Now all I need to do is nest this onto my card base. This will be a 1 cube reveal, so usually I don't use my ruler. It's a super long card though, so if you want to, I wouldn't fault you for that. I'm going to start out by adding some adhesive to my pink squares. 1, 2, 3. I like to work with 3 at a time, right? And then nest, nest, and nest. Now these next 3, I'm going to be using foam adhesive circles. Is this required? Absolutely not. Does it kind of kick it up a notch? Sure. So I'm going to use 2 whole circles on each one, but I'm going to cut them in half so I have a little bit. I always do this with my circles. Do you do this too? I always do this. I'm just going to add a piece on every corner edge, and then I kind of rotate them so that I have nice placement of adhesive the maximum amount on each edge to give it a lot of support. So to remove the backing, it's even easier if you happen to have tweezers handy. Just carefully grab the tails and pull, and you can remove the backing in seconds. Now here, if you wanted to use a ruler, you could, because it's a 2 cube from the pink, 2 cubes from the edge of the pink to the art element here. And that's a pretty big reveal. And with the foam adhesive, I just want to make sure it's nice and straight. So again, I'm going to set my ruler down so it's 2 cubes from the left of the pink, and then make sure I'm 2 cubes up from the bottom edge there. Nice. Okay, then these get nested onto the print. That'd be sweet. So flip them all over. Make sure you keep your order maintained, right? You don't want to get that mixed up because the expression does kind of have a flow to it, right? Now there's not much of a reveal here. Just kind of match it left, right, top. It is a 1 cube. I'm going to add the bottom one next. Left, right, bottom. Spacing should match. And then I can split the difference in the middle. Enter the card. Now this time, the reveal from the top and the bottom is a little different than the edge. So if you want it centered, it's 3 cubes and then 4 cubes. Okay, so add some adhesive to the back of this. And since my ruler is a little shorter than the card, no problem. I'll just use the upper left corner. So I'm going to go 3 cubes from the edge. There's my 3. 3 cubes from the edge and then 4 cubes down from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4. Place it and you're centered. Oh, that's so pretty, isn't it? Lastly, we have these embroidered leaves. There will be a right side and a wrong side. Just kind of check it out because the stitching will be on top of the organza. After you locate the bottom side, you'll apply our bookbinding glue from a needle tip applicator just to the threads. That's going to be plenty. And for this one, I'm just going to tuck it right underneath the corner. This very sweet little embellishment added to this vertical card. This is my sample. Oh, the inside. Let's talk about this for a moment. That's a really nice inside. We didn't do our inside decor. So that's where Pocket D comes in, my friends. So there's all this fun stuff in here, and you can literally use anything to decorate the inside of the card. Now, what I decided to do in this particular instance was to take, I think it's this green piece, and then I should have a smaller pink around here somewhere. Yeah, this one. And to add a little interest with scissors, I cut a little V into this strip. Put that on my scrap pile here. I like to do this because it just adds a little something special. It turns something that is nothing into a nice, you know, eye-catching thing. So I place this here. Now, what I did last time with this card was just after I had my sentiment placed, I measured to add this, but I'm not even going to do that this time. I'm just going to take this and add it here. And then I'll take my sentiment that says thankful for you, and I'll add it here. Now I have plenty of space to write a sentiment. It's a beautiful inside greeting, and I used some scraps, rescued them from the circular file. Win-win. All right, now the other card that is vertical will be assembled the same way. Now you'll notice that I wrapped the opposing corners. Doesn't matter, just adds a little bit with the ribbon. And then this time I used, let's see, it looks like one of these longer printed scraps and a shorter shorter burgundy scrap. Yeah, so again, sky's the limit for how you want to finish the insides of these cards. The horizontal ones are a little different in assembly, very, very slightly. Instead of wrapping the corners, I ran the silver edged satin around the base before I nested it. You could do it at any stage of the game. You could even do it before you add your raised things so you can see more ribbon, totally up to you. And then on the inside, you can see I used a strip, 8.5-inch strip. It probably is one in there at that length. And then a narrow strip that I trimmed, added the Get Well Soon, and then my little trimmed flower. I did the same on this one, ran the ribbon through horizontally and added another trimmed flower and a pairing here. Great way to use your scraps. It's finally time to empty pocket C. So there's a lot in there. Oh my goodness. Don't let that scare you. It's not going to be too bad. But our first project would be to organize everything again so you can sort through it more easily. Oh my goodness, this is just the plain pieces. These are the sentiments, but wow, what an impressive pile. Let's begin by finding our 5x7s that are not scored. So that would be the white. We're gonna start with the white plain. That'll be on our upper left here. Then let's add the pink next, the green, and the wine. So these have no score lines. Now we'll find the matching color with the score lines. So there's the white, the pink, the green, and the wine. Now the next largest panels, let's get those distributed. We'll put burgundy, green, pink, and white. From our larger strips that we have, let's add a pink one here, a wine colored one here, a white one here, and then a green one to end. Oh, that green paper is so heavy. Now let's look at, we have some more of those panels, but let's find the smaller ones. These are the shortest, but they're a little wider. So let's find those. Let's place wine, then green, and those will be scaled to nest onto that narrow strip here, pink and white. Maybe now would be a good time to set these aside, and let's grab our prints for these would be for the insides of the cards, which I'm sort of gathering up now. So from the larger set of sentiments, let's put the plain one, the plain larger piece, and then a smaller one that says with sincere sympathy. Then we have an enjoy your day with, didn't you just have a birthday? Then we have another one that is kind of a blank on the inside, a larger panel, and then thanks for being awesome. So lots of room to write a note there. And then finally, so happy for you and a congrats. Oh, we are getting there. We have a little wee flower we're using on that one. I can't seem to find the other one right now. I'm sure it's around here. I'm not worried. Let's go back to these rectangular panels. We'll go wine, green, pink, and white. Now we have these narrow ones. We'll go to those. We'll go green and green, white and white. So two wine, two pink. And we have these larger plain ones. Keep with the color green. Match those other strips. White, wine, pink. Then come back with the prints. Print, 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 print. Finally, our sentiment. A beautiful soul is never forgotten. Oh, there's my little flower. That goes with this one. And what incarnation? Sometimes miracles are simply good people with kind hearts, and then behind you all your memories. Almost forgot about my little strips matching these colors. So green, two of those. It just gets smaller and smaller. Two white here, two wine, and two pink. Go to your goodie pile. Let's grab these laser cut flowers. Put one on each. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the two remaining leaves go on those bottom cards. They're used on the inside. I had so many great embellishments and ribbons and all kinds of fun things in this set. And then of course the enveloping for later. So we're going to do one of these bay window cards together. These cards are so clever. you are going to love them and people will think you are a genius. So we've got our card base here and then the 5x7 that is scored. Let's crease on these lines according to the way, you know, the rules. So here's a bump. I'm just going to do a little crease here. Then the bump here is on the other side. The bump here is on the other side. And then I'm going to flip back to bury this bump. You don't need to make a full 90-degree crease or anything, but do you see what this did? It created this unique shape that reminds you of a bay window. Now, take your glue or your favorite adhesive. I like to use a wet adhesive for this in case I want to adjust the placement of the piece after it's made contact with the paper. If you're using like a, you know, orange tape or red tape, or you're using ATG, you don't have that flexibility. So now I'm going to place this along the edge of the card base that's not scored and line everything up. See how I can move that around? Notice the linen side is facing up on this and also on this one. So that'll be where the card basically opens. Now from your stack here toward the bottom, we placed this larger wine colored panel and this pink one. So that goes on the inside of the card. Let's go ahead and do this. So I'll take my just regular adhesive, add it to this, my regular adhesive, add it to that. And I'm going to start out with this narrow panel. And what I'm doing is placing it so that I have equal margin on the right, top, and bottom edge. So a reveal, whatever you want to call it, margin, reveal, boom. Now this, I'm going to place it next to it, but not touching it. So I'm going to have that same distance separating this panel and this panel. And that should take us right to the crease. Perfect. Here we have another panel and our inside sentiment. A couple of important things. You do need foam adhesive for this trick. The first thing I'll do is use regular adhesive to attach the sentiment to its mat. Then I will flip it over and add a row of adhesive kind of positioned vertically through the middle. And I'll take off the backing there. If you want, you can use your ruler for centering. I think it's a 2 cube, so in other words, 1/4 of an inch reveal. Oh, it's perfect. Nice, so pretty. Then on the inside also, we have a panel that matches the height of this. And I think this is going to be a 3 cube reveal. I hope that as you work with the ruler, you will appreciate more and more how helpful it can be. This gives you more space to write. Since the panel is dark, I allocated a panel to layer on top of it and just had Jacqueline design a faded floral so that you can write your personal message inside the card. All right, now the outside. Some easy things. All of the green. Let's go to the green pieces here. So simple. Each one has a home within a scored area. So these little guys, they are going to live within the scored areas on the outside edges. And if you don't really feel like adding these, no harm, no foul, just pitch them. But the paper was there. Mathematically, it literally was an entire strip of paper, made all the mats for this. Boom, boom, boom. And the one on the inside of the other card. I mean, honestly, it can't go any better. Now you'll notice I use my liquid glue for the skinny mat because my ATG tape is 1/4 inch. So now I'm just simply nesting, and you can add your adhesive to all the panels at once if you like, for all 4 cards if you like. So again, just between the scored areas, getting all set up here. So pretty. Getting there. Okay, now we have a printed panel that fits perfectly in the center. Okay, optional here, I've got my corner chomper. I used it earlier on the tag in set A, and I had Jacqueline design this with a rounded corner as well. since it's kind of going to be popping up. A little fun ribbon trick my friend Kathy inspired me to do is to trim some ribbon here about the width of this panel. Grab your tape. See the grain of the ribbon, which way it wants to go. It really wants to go this way. Okay, so I'm going to take one end of this and tape it to the back. Then all I'm going to do, and this is like magic, twist. Just a little twist. No knot. Very sweet, very easy. Do that twist. Nest it onto this piece now. And the finishing touch here is going to be this. Now, the way I attached mine was just with a little dab of adhesive and center it kind of top to bottom. I'm looking here and here. You don't want it going past the edges. And then being aware to only put adhesive through the middle of this piece. Center top to bottom, left to right. This sneaks under here. And your bay window stands out. And everyone will think you are a genius. What I like is how dimensional this is, yet how simple it was to assemble because all the math was done on all those pieces. And then when you throw it in the mail, it's nice and flat and still beautiful when it's opened. And then the recipient just tucks that in and you're good to go for display. So gorgeous. The last little touch, I on the inside just added with foam adhesive this flower, and I was fine with using the foam because it was already used here, and that just gives it a little more dimension as well. So just fussy cut this with your favorite detail scissors and boom, you got a nice embellishment there. On the next card, I did a little something different. I just did a staple. I think the reason I did that is because I forgot to wrap this before I attached it or something, I don't know. And I also added the little detail here with the fussy cut flower. Didn't you just, or what incarnation? Didn't you just have a birthday? Enjoy your day. Plenty of room to write. This one, sometimes miracles are simply good people with kind hearts. Thanks for being awesome. Could still be birthday. It could be a thank you. It could be a congratulations. Anything, right? You can see the remaining embossed or embroidered leaf there. And then this one is truly a congratulations. Again, could really apply for any event, right down to a wedding anniversary or something, or a wedding. And here you got your little leaf there as well. We always try to remove the pronouns, so it says so happy for you instead of we're so happy for you or I'm so happy for you, so that whether you're single or married or sending for multiple people or just a single person, it applies. We really try to keep things nice and broad for you. And you've really hung in there with me to the bitter end. Thank you for that. A quick reminder that if you like these cards, we do have an add-on set of Cutaparts that we created with the same map, the same trimming map. All the sizes of all the panels are the same, except all the quotes pertain to Mother's Day. Now, we know that most of us just have the one mom. So we might have a grandmother, we might have our mom, we may not have either in our lives anymore like me, but I'm gonna get a lot of use out of these cards because there are a lot of women in my life that I really treasure and want to honor this time of year. So we have cards for maybe someone who just lost his or her mother. These are going to be a nice addition to your card kit. Get them while they last. All you need to do is get a second kit, or you can just substitute these for the ones that are in there, or substitute your own paper and make your own cards. This is just for you to have more options, and it is available as a separate add-on. There you have it, the Magnolia Card Kit Workshop. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.